Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, where today I will be talking about Night Fright. Not Fright Night, the vampire movie, Night Fright from 1967, a science fiction horror film. And the movie starts with a very familiar cinematic trope, two college kids making out at Lover's Lane. These two teenagers get murdered by an unseen assailant. Before they get around to being killed, though, they find time for some exposition about a rocket crashing nearby. Golly, could the two events be related in some way? Well, B-movie stalwart John Agar is the local sheriff Clint Crawford who must investigate the gruesome deaths. He decides to close the lake where the kids go to make out, which seems sensible enough, given that the two people have just been murdered there. But he also decides to keep the reasons for the closure a secret, which seems far less sensible and also the kind of thing that would be doomed to failure in the real world. Two violent murders are not going to go unnoticed in a small town, you would think. Anyway, as you might imagine, closing the lake without any explanation does little to stop teenagers from sneaking up there, so Crawford better find the killer soon if he wants to keep those young rascals alive. Of course, he will discover once he does find the killer that it is something very much out of the ordinary that is going on, and stopping the killer may be quite the challenge, and I think probably the image on your screen has given you a little bit of a spoiler about that. And yeah, to spoil that big reveal, the killer is a monstrous beast. I mean, I bet you couldn't have guessed. It was accidentally created by a NASA experiment, in fact. This experiment involved sending several animals into space to test the impacts of the journey upon their bodies. Radiation interfered with the mission, mutating the animals and causing the rocket to crash land near Crawford's hometown. One of the mutated animals, Wikipedia identifies it as an alligator, though, I mean, it doesn't look much like an alligator to me, it looks more like a gorilla, survived the crash and is now prowling around the local woods, munching on anyone who enters its new domain. So, we have our monster and we have our hero to chase it. Will their contest make for good entertainment? Well, no, it's definitely not good. I did enjoy certain elements of it, though, but definitely not in the manner that they were intended, I suspect. So let's start with the movie's most obvious weakness. It's a very cheap production. This is evident not just from the hokey nature of the monster costume itself, but also how that costume is shot. It's always at night, always in the woods, so its shortcomings are as concealed as much as possible by darkness and intervening foliage. And also, the film's cheap production is shown by the extensive amount of padding used to chew up the minimum requisite runtime. This includes several long sequences of Sheriff Crawford walking around the forest, and an extensive scene in which local teenagers bust out their best dance moves. The latter sequence also reveals that the director was particularly enamoured of one extra's backside, as the camera lingers there extensively. It also demonstrates another symptom of the film's budget, which is a lack of concern with continuity. This dancing scene is supposedly set at twilight, but it is intercut with other events that are clearly filmed in the middle of the day. Because you just film it, stitch it together, and hope for the best when you're in the cheap end of the pool. Also a likely artifact of the film's low-cost production techniques is its unintentionally amusing subplot of teen drama. This involves a wholesome young man and his wholesome new girlfriend, and their issues with the young man's possibly jealous ex and her new bad boy beau. Possibly jealous ex is also the younger sister of the sheriff's own girlfriend, who, to be honest, looks a good 20 years younger than John Agar does, all of which is a recipe for a whole lot of talky talk going on between the sporadic monster attacks. Much of this is tiresome stuff, but it is sometimes so ineptly done that it blasts right through terrible and into hilarious, such as when wholesome young man utters the immortal line, But seriously, have you ever thought about, oh, sometimes when I'm alone I think about things that we don't know about the sky and the earth and the air and the wind, or even this leaf. I don't know if the writers thought this was genuinely insightful dialogue, or if it was just their idea of a slightly pretentious teenager's version of insight, but either way, and also through several other bungled elements of this subplot, they provided me with some presumably unintended chuckles as I was watching this turkey. Also giving me presumably unintentional chuckles was the monster's pattern of attacks. It only ever attacks people when they're in cars, though it will chase them if they leave the vehicle, which for some reason, as I was watching the movie, prompted me to spend part of my time concocting a theory that the monster was just acting out its anger against being sealed in a tin can and blasted into space. Ultimately, Night Fright is a cheap, badly made 60s sci-fi movie. You should avoid it unless you have as big a soft spot for such tripe as I do. One final note of warning before I finish. This film can also be found lurking under the title ETN, the Extraterrestrial Nasty, with a cover that makes it look like a gory parody of Steven Spielberg's E.T., the Extraterrestrial. It is, of course, nothing of the kind, as it predates that film by some 15 years. This marketing strategy appears to have been something that was done entirely to cash in on the video nasty hysteria that struck the UK in the early 80s, trying to sell the movie as a much more gory and exploitative affair than it really is. It's nothing of the kind. It's very tame stuff, frankly. Next time, a movie that might actually have helped engender the video nasty hysteria, Roger Corman's cynically sexualized 1980 monster movie, Humanoids from the Deep. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you've seen today's movie, my apologies, but also let me know what you thought of it.